Continuing completed classics. Fulfilling failed franchises. Reinvigorating reviled rehashes. It's the follow-up Showdown! With Paul Getz, Travis McMaster, and Lauren Picorni.
Hello and welcome to all you uppers and downers to the follow-up Showdown 2 Nerds in Quarantine, where we give worthy second chapters to stories that don't have them. I am your host, the Midwesterner, also known as Paul Getz of the Clan Getz, and I am joined by my co-hosts Travis McMaster and Lauren Picorni. Hello, fellow immortals.
Hi, we're also Midwesterners.
I thought you were a Floridian.
But before that, Kansas.
Ah, I never knew that.
I dare say I'm a Southerner.
No, she's from Arkansas. She's from the Midwest.
Does that count? I don't know where the lines are drawn.
Well, if this is the first time you're joining us, the way it works is we take a movie with either no sequel or an inferior sequel, and each take a turn at pitching a better continuation. But in the end, there can only be one. Our guest today works on civic and nonprofit innovation in Los Angeles. Sachin Medhekar, my self-proclaimed best friend, and the movie he has chosen for us to focus on today is 1991's Highlander II, The Quickening. Sachin, why'd you pick this gem for us?
So I had actually recently watched Highlander, rewatched it, and it was better than I had remembered. And I had always heard that The Quickening was just it was just a crazy movie, and I hadn't seen it, and it did not disappoint.
Oh man, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll start by talking about the first one. It's a cult classic overall, I would say. 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's pretty fair in terms of its appeal. It was not a box office success. It had a $19 million budget and only made $12 million worldwide. It only became a cult classic after the fact by fantasy and sci-fi fans, and was helped along by the novels that were released between the movie and the television series. Well, and the second.
We were supposed to read all of those for this, right? You all read. Are we gonna...
Yeah. There was a lot of ground to cover, but we did our homework, hopefully. I guess let's start, there's lots of notes on this movie. Lots of writers, actors, directors. For the first time, music notes. Look forward to that. And plenty of fun facts. What's up, Travis?
Pun, music notes. Come on, guys. We're gonna have a good day today, all right? It's going to be a good show today.
But before we get into the wackiness that is to come, I guess let's just all talk about our own feelings and experiences with the first movie.
I think like many let's say B movies, and this I didn't even realize this was a B movie until I watched it. Through my uncle. I've my favorite uncle, Uncle Raj, loves these sorts of films and constantly is quoting random movies that are usually the sequels to that he likes, but this one he also admits the sequel is crazy. Yeah, he told me to watch it. And I mean, it's crazy for a B movie how famous it is. I mean, everyone knows about that. Like, there can only be one. Like, that line is famous. People know that line. I don't know why I knew that line without having seen the movie.
This was my first time seeing it, was for this podcast. Although I owned it, and I don't know why. I think I must have borrowed it from someone and never returned it. One of those.
Based on the condition of the case when you lent it to me, I think you were using it to prop up an air conditioner outside.
Hopefully that wasn't me, because I'm pretty sure that I borrowed it from Michael Arnett, a friend back in St. Louis. Michael, if you're listening, sorry, I'll give it back to you one day. But yes, I was also very familiar with the "there can only be one." My incorrect assumption as to what there can only be one was that it was the Highlander. Like, there is only one Highlander in the movie, I guess, but that is not what it is in reference to. Of course, the Highlander is it's only MacLeod.
That is.
Yeah,
that
technically,
is.
I think the group is the Immortals, but they don't ever give them a name. They just kind of refer to them as Immortals. Like,
all right, I'm realizing we're already stepping on sticky ground, and so hopefully this is a good time for 2 Travis McMaster minutes.
2 Travis McMaster minutes.
What this is trying to explain both movies in 2 minutes.
I'm going to deliver 2 mediocre minutes.
Are you ready, Travis?
I suppose.
Good luck. Go.
Okay, so Highlander.
I'm gonna
Let me
start
start
over.
We did it.
I'm
You
gonna
did
start
it.
over. Yeah.
10 seconds.
I didn't even know where to start.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm
You
ready.
Beginning
Okay.
of time. Let's go.
And go.
So Connor MacLeod is a 16th century Scot who lives in a small village and goes to battle over something and is killed by Clancy Brown, the Black Knight. He wakes up the next day because he is an immortal person. He is driven from his village with cries of devilry, whereupon he meets Sean Connery, who informs him that not only is Sean Connery Egyptian, but that both of them are immortal beings who cannot die and will live forever and cannot fight on hallowed ground that will never come up. And eventually there can only be one. And then you get a prize called the Quickening. And then sort of flash forward to modern times where there's an immortal beheading fight and Connor MacLeod gets wrapped up in a police investigation, whereupon he kills Clancy Brown, becomes the only one, marries the girl that was standing next to him because that's how we do movies. And then he wins his prize, which is that he gets to age and die and is also kind of psychic to everyone on the planet. Highlander 2. The year is 2024. The ozone layer is gone, maybe. Connor MacLeod has used his something to build a shield around the entire planet, turning it into Blade Runner. No shit. In the distant past, it was Mad Max times, and Connor MacLeod and Sean Connery lived in a civilization, and they were going to war against Michael Ironsides, and then they got banished by clerics into the future, but without their memories, I think. And then Michael Ironside sends two like bird henchmen to kill them. And then because there are immortals in the future 2024, now the Highlander immortal stuff starts all over, so he loses his Quickening prize, which just makes him young and sexy and fighty again. And then, and then it's a Highlander movie. Then he has to kill the bad guy, Michael Ironsides. But then there's also this weird... Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, well done. You did better than I expected. Just because it's so complicated, and that's not a dig at you this time.
That's how I took it, but okay.
Yeah. The only things of note that I feel like might be worth mentioning are that the Quickening itself is not the prize. The Quickening is the sensation of energy you get after killing an immortal.
I also thought that, but I swear in watching these movies the last couple of days,
the Quickening, what the Quickening is changes from the first one to the second one.
That's what
in the first one, it's the energy surge you get from killing an immortal, and the prize is only achieved once you've killed.
Okay, whoa. Are you saying that there are discrepancies between these two movies? You're saying because Sean Connery's character Don Juan Ramirez or whatever, he describes the feeling. What you're feeling is the Quickening, this driving energy force within them that maybe does compel them to the gathering is like when they that's like the fight.
The gathering. The gathering, as opposed to the Quickening, is when the immortals come together to fight.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to mention sort of just came up by saying his name. Sean Connery is an ancient Egyptian by way of being a Spaniard. He spent, it seems like, a lot of time in Spain. So it's like he's introduced as a Spaniard and then it's revealed he was Egyptian. I guess that doesn't really matter.
And he has what I will call, he has an uncomfortable level of makeup on where I can't tell if it was just like a bronzer.
Only in the first one.
I think it was worse in the first, but I do agree. I wasn't sure if they were trying to do like brown face, like they were getting towards just doing brown face for him in the first one. It felt like. Also, one small note, and this is, I kind of knew this coming in, but I don't know if it's specified in the movie. Although I did, in addition to reading the books, I watched the alternate ending for the second movie, and it's very specified. The planet, they come from a different planet in the second.
And what you're referring to is the theatrical cut. So what I watched on Amazon Prime, and I guess what you guys watched, is the Renegade cut or the special edition, which the director changed things so that they're coming from the past. Whereas in the original, they're coming from a different planet.
Which you can still, in the cut that's available, you can still tell, like when Michael Ironsides and when the bird henchmen arrive in the future, they penetrate the shield. They come from outside the shield and go through it, and the technicians are like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I feel like I should be at this point chiming in to say, oh, I think it's better if they're from another planet. Long live Planet Zeist. Let's do that. But I think it kind of somehow does work a little bit better that they're past. I don't know that nonsense is better than this nonsense, but it is.
Yeah, I don't think either works flawlessly, but I think the time travel aspect does work a little better. And then I guess I would say that plot-wise, the only thing that might be worth mentioning that didn't come up in the minutes was that Connor himself is responsible for the shield around the ozone. And that was sort of his Highlander attempt, his immortal attempt at helping the world. But the ozone layer has rebuilt itself, and we don't need it anymore. And now that shield is kind of destroying the world.
Oh, but here comes corporate America with the face of John C. McGinley, and he says, I want that money. I want it.
Oh, that's a really good John C. McGinley.
Thank you.
I did not see that coming.
We watch a lot of Scrubs in this household. A lot of Scrubs.
I was confused about that. I'm like, are you saying that people are like paying you rent for the shield around the entire Earth?
I think that is the implication, is that all the countries are paying, and it's like, or what? Like, it's just like this weird threat.
We'll turn off the shield just over Canada if the rent is.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to jump too far into talking about the second one, but it doesn't seem like John C. McGinley was involved back when Connor and Alan, his science partner, launched the shield. You know what I mean? So when did he come in and just start charging people, I guess is my question. But
that was after... That was like when like the Shield went corporate and like sold out and became all about the money.
Big Shield, you know.
No, but you're right, Paul. Let's get back on track. Let's get back to Highlander.
I'll jump into my notes here. So the writer's notes. This is pretty interesting. Main writer Gregory Wyden, who wrote the script as an undergrad for an assignment at UCLA and sold it while still in college for $200,000.
It was a different time, huh?
Yeah. You know, his advisor liked it so much, said he should send it to an agent, and it just sort of went from there. The script was punched up by Peter Bellwood, who the only other movie I could find that he wrote was a Malcolm McDowell movie called Monster Butler. But he did write a fair amount of television.
Could I ask a question about Monster Butler that you might know the answer to?
I probably don't, but go ahead.
Is the monster the butler, or is the butler serving the monster?
I have only seen the cover art, but based on that exclusively, my guess is the butler himself is the monster, and I don't know that he's an official monster so much as he's just evil, because it's really just Malcolm McDowell looking, like, scowling. The third writer was Larry Ferguson, who wrote Beverly Hills Cop 2, The Hunt for Red October, Alien 3, and Rollerball. So my guess would be that he's some of the special sauce that really brought this thing together. So as far as that goes, let's talk about our feelings on the movie.
I'd never seen this movie. The two things I knew about it were like there can only be one, and McCloud. I didn't like it. I thought it was very, very boring. It took itself very seriously. I don't know what I was expecting. Like, from all I'd heard about it, I guess I didn't know it was such a cult classic. I thought it was just a respected film. But I mean, it definitely reads a lot more like a B-, C+ movie.
I'd seen the movie. My parents must have showed it to us when I was like really, really little, and probably when the second one came out. Because I remember watching it and thinking it was not scary, but like really intense. And Lauren and I will talk about sometimes how, rated R movies they're more different kinds of movies used to be rated R. If they'd made Highlander today, it would be PG-13. So as a kid watching it, again, I was really put off by like the violence of even just like the quickening and the lightning and stuff. And every single thing Clancy Brown said, I remember being very uncomfortable with. But I thought I liked it. And it turns out I sort of did. It felt like a combination of, the energy Terminator has, the first Terminator, the kind of 80s grungy, violent. And then Terminator 2 has that sort of like Lauren was saying, grown up, respectable, more kind of bigger vibe. These words are going to get me in trouble, I know. But you guys know you out there listening, you know what I'm talking about. Highlander feels like it was pulling halfway in each of those directions. So I didn't really get to settle in. But I didn't dislike it as much as some other people who I had watched it with. Really, 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 of course, enjoyed Clancy Brown
Sure.
Yeah.
Who could do no wrong. And Queen.
This is my first time seeing it. I had anticipated thinking that it would be stupid. And I'm not going to say it wasn't. And I do understand not liking it. And I also understand it not getting maybe that much respect, maybe especially because of how much of it there's been since, sequel-wise and all that kind of thing. However, I loved it. I was blown away by this movie. And to your point, Lauren, what I felt like I was worried about happening was that it would take itself too seriously. And I really don't think that it did. I was expecting it to have that sort of 80s vibe of like the hero can do no wrong, the hero is invulnerable, all that kind of stuff. But that's really not what you get, at least not from the first one. In the first one, you get to see his humanity over and over again, both in his past and in the present. I mean, I guess he's a little more invulnerable by the time most of the movie takes place. But one thing about it that I loved that I wasn't expecting was the type of humor that you got. And I think my best example of what I'm talking about is the scene where he's being trained by Juan Villalobos Ramirez, and Juan knocks him down, and his wife laughs at him, and then he says, "Heather, please." Which moments like that made me so happy.
You called it out, yeah.
That moment in particular, and moments like that made me so happy because I was like, you know what? I really, really love this guy. He's not just a dumb, handsome machismo hero. He's a guy who's been through some shit, and he's just, he was just normal and unknowing at some point, and he's had to go through a lot to get to the point that we're getting to the action that he's in. I really loved it. And I agree with you, Clancy Brown, MVP, just slaughters it as the Kurgan. Honestly, the only real note I have for this movie is that the sex scene is so unnecessary and comes... I understand that, and so I was expecting
Rated R movie.
What I wasn't expecting from it was that it would come so out of nowhere. Like, literally, the only build-up to it is he tells her he's immortal, makes her stab him, and then pulls the knife out and is okay. It doesn't even, show a healed wound or anything.
Pretty hot.
And then she kisses him and they have sex, which it's like... That character had she was fascinated by him. She was as a cop investigating him, but there was no inclination of attraction or connection at all at that point. And so while I was expecting it to get there, the fact that it just went there out of nowhere was like, okay, this is the one scene I think you can cut if you're going to cut something. But it was the 80s, as you said.
I want to point out that the second movie was able to even up one on the how quickly we're gonna jump into a sex scene. I mean, I was honest, it was like a scary sex scene in the second one. It was like, whoa, we're not here. You just met.
Literally 10 minutes ago.
Murdered people.
Then you walk out of an explosion,
and then she climbed out
of your body.
Yeah.
She climbs out of a dumpster. And even the kiss, when they started kissing, I'm like, whoa, that was quick. And then when it became and they're in an alleyway, it wasn't even a nice location. Okay, anyway, sorry, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll get around. We'll get around to the second one. So my remaining notes, the director, Russell McCauley, who also directed the second one, but we'll get a little bit more into the specifics of that later. He also directed The Shadow, The Real McCoy, Resident Evil Extinction, and The Scorpion King 2, Rise of a Warrior. So kind of a descending track. And he said the biggest challenge in this movie was the visualization of the prize, which, if you'll remember, was the animated demons flying around and stuff like that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't clock that as the prize, though. I just thought that was a scary thing that was happening.
Yeah, the prize is that you get possessed by thousands of demons.
I guess my read on that was Clancy Brown's so evil and has been killing for so long that when you kill him, they all Ark of the Covenant tumble out of.
That's your gift.
Well, Russell McCauley's quote about that sequence was, "Not knowing what to do, we did what we did." So
I want that on a plaque.
I guess he has mixed feelings about how it ended up coming out. But apparently a big part of why the animation was used was to cover the wires that were holding up Christopher Lambert.
It's not
for that scene.
Bad idea.
I mean, I thought it looked pretty cool. And,
definitely.
it didn't look that appealing as far as a prize is concerned. But my actor's notes for this movie, McCloud was originally, Kurt Russell was cast. And it was only at the insistence of Goldie Hawn that he left the movie to do Big Trouble in Little China.
Ooh. Go Goldie.
So could have still been, I mean, Kurt Russell would have made it cool for sure. I loved Christopher Lambert in this movie.
I don't think so.
Yeah. You got all the voices for this movie down. You're our impressionist today. Christopher Lambert barely spoke English when they cast him. They cast him based on a photo, basically.
We know what they cast.
They loved his look. Yeah. But he's
obviously immortal.
He pulled it out. He's French. I don't think I ever knew that. I mean, I guess I could have assumed it because of the name, but I never knew that he couldn't speak English. I just think his voice is cool.
I didn't know if he was doing a voice. I couldn't tell if he was doing it because it's actually so perfect for this guy who's grown up through the centuries and has this weird accent because of that. But I didn't know if that was an accent or not, and that's just his voice.
Well, didn't he also? I felt like he was peppering in a version of a Scottish accent in there.
Was he?
I think he might have tried it a few times in the first one, at least in the Scotland.
I think in the flashback scenes, I think he was trying a little bit.
Okay, Peter Diamond, who played Facile, the guy he has the fight with in the parking lot after the wrestling match, that was the stunt coordinator. So those backflips were legit and, just a part of his showing off his skills.
Why didn't they ever show him, jumping up from it? Because watching that scene, it just looked like they had one person backflipping and the actor popping up at points. It was
absolutely. We did not get that payoff. Exactly. They really
did not
made
showcase
it look
his
like
abilities.
Well, there was the one part where he was just backflipping instead of walking.
That was amazing.
If I could backflip instead of walk, I might. Especially in a parking garage. I don't need to walk all the way down to find that car.
And then my final actor's note for this movie is that all of Sean Connery's scenes had to be filmed in a week due to his schedule. And he had a bet with the director that they would not finish in 7 days. The director won the bet, and Connery earned $1 million for that win.
I don't think that's a very fair bet because he could just blow his lines. He could.
I know
how long that takes.
Scales. Yeah. Just get sick and be like, see, it took more than a week.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, but honestly, because of just knowing things about Sean Connery separate from this and everything I found out about him based on researching this movie, he seems like the kind of guy that maybe does that with every movie. Just dares very much like his line in the second one when he's like, competition brings out the best in a man, or whatever. It's I bet he believes that, and I bet he does that all the time, where he's like, hey, bet you can't get me out of here in 2 weeks and pay me an extra.
Actually, speaking of which, is not today his 90th birthday?
Holy
I believe.
cow.
I thought that's why we were doing this. This isn't that the whole
August 25th. For your birthday, we'll say nice things about
happy birthday, Mr. Connery.
Highlander.
Hey, happy birthday.
Okay, so let's talk about the queen of it all. This soundtrack is brought to you, for the most part, completely by Queen, the rock and roll band, Queen, who rules, and always and forever. And apparently the way they got involved in this movie is the director, Russell McCallie, for the most part, is a music video director. He did a bunch of Queen music videos, but before Queen decided to do the soundtrack, they were offered originally, but before they decided, it was offered to David Bowie. It was offered to Sting, who was also at that point being prepped to play Connor McCloud in this alternate version. And Duran Duran was
the big three.
Put into consideration. Apparently, the now largely forgotten prog rock band Marillion passed on doing this and has since spoken often and loudly about how bad of a decision that was.
Hard to argue with them, but I mean, stick to your artistic guns, Marillion.
Yeah.
Merle.
Did anybody have any favorite Queen moments in the film?
Just the opening is so good. Because the Queen just hits you right in the beginning, right after they do the text intro. I love that.
That was pretty exciting. Yeah. I do genuinely like the Nothing Lasts Forever song that has been stuck in my head for the last couple days.
My favorite Queen moment, and there's a lot of good ones, but when the Kurgan is driving Brenda around recklessly and just torturing her, That song is excellent, and then it ends with this just amazing sample of Freddie Mercury doing a New York, New York cover.
I do remember that.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
just
yeah.
delighted the hell out of me. And apparently that brief little snippet has never been released on any album or single of any kind. It's like you can only get it on illegal bootlegs of the movie score. I got plenty of fun facts on this movie. I narrowed it down to the top 3. I guess I'll hit you with number 3, and then we can start rolling into the second one, and then we'll see how many we can get out there. According to the director, when they first shot the scene of the Kurgan bursting through the door to cut the table in half, Clancy Brown instead ran in and cut through the candelabra, nearly decapitating Sean Connery.
That's the point of the movie.
As a result, Connery stormed off the set. Later, Connery returned, and Brown apologized, saying that he was nervous. Connery joked that he should use his stunt double more.
So did they actually use a real sword, or what the what? Like,
Oh, I just assumed that like Clancy Brown's raw energy, whatever he's holding, will become powerful enough to destroy a chandelier and, endure a nontogetarian.
According to the crew, Clancy Brown basically became the Kurgan, and so they all kept their distance.
I believe it. He's an intense man.
Method acting.
Man, he's great.
But I have to imagine if it's an early movie of his, that's the character he's playing, and that's what he has to wear on set all day. You might just sort of default to, letting the crew be a little afraid of you so you can be scary on screen.
Okay, any other thoughts on Highlander 1 that anyone wants to get out there before we move into the second one?
There was a lot of fun cinematography. And I know that's always the, you have such pretty handwriting of compliments, but, of film compliments, but it did some really fun, interesting, dare I say, trauma-esque.
Sachin and I watched the first one live texting each other, and you pointed out that opening shot in the wrestling match was like a drone shot.
Yeah.
Apparently what that was a computerized system that held the camera on 4 wires, and it was invented by the inventor of the Steadicam, Garrett Brown.
Wow. And one thing I'll point out in this, that before we go to the second one, which the second one destroys, is Connor McLeod goes to Ramirez and goes, what the hell is this? Like, why is this happening? And he goes, why does the sun rise in the morning? Like, they leave it so, like, mythical and so, like, and, like, I kind of love that. It's like they do so much world building and they just kind of go, fuck it. Like, that's what it is,
When I was actually pretty happy with, I didn't think you'd ever really be told what the prize was. And then in the end, when he explains that it's like, I can have children and I can hear everybody's thoughts in the world, and so I will be of help to the world. Like, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't think they'd get specific on that, but that, if you don't put it under the microscope too much, that makes sense as like a universal logic for why you would have this system where immortals are born and have to fight each other till there's only one, and then the remaining one saves the world. It's as natural a cycle as anything else, at that point.
The prosthetics in Highlander.
Ooh. The anything that was made out of rocks, that was meant to be boulders or castle walls, it was just foam all the live long day. That did not hold up. And Sachin, you pointed out that in McLeod's apartment in New York, the windows, and I found out specifically that those are actually photos of New York blown up and cut into shapes that fit the windows. So it is exactly what it looks like. It is just photographs.
Totally.
That was a sweet apartment, man.
Yeah.
Pretty
Pretty sick.
You have to be an antique dealer.
Okay. So Highlander 2, The Quickening. 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is too harsh.
Really? Well,
I don't know. I was happy when the movie ended. I was like happy that I made it through the whole film.
I do have some nice things to say about the movie, but I would agree that the movie wore on me as it went. Travis is going nuts waiting to disagree with that.
I mean,
Please.
at risk of sort of, flanderizing myself into a caricature of an opinion, I really liked Highlander 2 a lot. I had a blast. I will admit it is a film seemingly for no one. If you liked Highlander, there's no way you will like Highlander 2. It's not a Highlander sequel. It doesn't matter how interesting it might be or even if it's any good. it's not a Highlander sequel. You're going to be miserable. If you don't like Highlander, there's way too much Highlander stuff in this movie for you to engage with the other interesting stuff. So I think you can best enjoy this movie if you're watching it as a homework assignment for a podcast.
Can I throw a theory that I had about Highlander 2 out there right now?
Please.
I felt like the writer of this movie wrote a sci-fi movie and then got pitched the ability to do Highlander 2 and was like, I can make this work. Because I swear, Ramirez is in the film. Like, if you could extract Ramirez from the film almost entirely and it doesn't change anything. And it's like, it's just this sci-fi movie. I mean, you go from like a historical fantasy film to this just like gritty Blade Runner sci-fi movie that's like just about a corporation It's like, doesn't matter that it's Highlander doing any of these things. It feels like, it feels like that maybe was a separate idea and they were like, let's do it.
I do have some answers to this. The story of this movie was written separately. It was written by Brian Clemens and William Panzer.
What was the first name?
Brian Clemens, who essentially wrote for TV, most famously the Avengers TV show. But he was a TV writer from 1957 to 1999. So very long-standing career. He also wrote the film adaptation of The Telltale Heart, See No Evil, starring Mia Farrow, and The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. He's a very extensive IMDb. But in any case, he and William Panzer wrote the story. William Panzer, his only other writing credit is the 1976 movie Steel, not the Shack Steel. But he also stayed on to write the story for Highlanders 3 and 4, which is interesting. And we'll get into that in a little bit later. However, the screenplay was written by Peter Bellwood, one of the 3 original writers of the first one. However, I would say he is the least impressive of the 3 and not the man who came up with Highlander. By the way, that same UCLA student, Gregory Wyden, also wrote Backdraft. So that is his other sort of claim to fame as far as like successful things he's done. Oh, and he wrote The Prophecy, the Christopher Walken horror
All
movie.
3 of them?
Just one.
Okay.
But he did write Backdraft 2, the straight-to-video sequel. So while most of the sequels based on his work were written by other people, that one he did himself, interestingly
And
enough.
these were all written in college. These are all from his college.
To answer another part of the question, Sean Connery, and I have this under fun facts, but he is only in this movie because Christopher Lambert and him got along so well on the set of the first one that Christopher Lambert threatened to walk if they didn't put him in the movie.
Sean Connery want to be in the movie?
I don't think
Apparently because he and Christopher Lambert were such good buddies, he wanted to do it.
They didn't know that it's possible to hang out outside of a movie set. So they're like, well, we're not going to be able to see each other if you're not in this film. He's only a comedic person the whole movie. Like the whole movie, the whole point of him is that it's like a funny joke that he's like from a different time. That's the whole thing.
And I gotta say, I loved it. I mean, I'm not gonna. I have a handful of compliments about this movie. I will say it was a grating experience overall. However, Sean Connery, almost every bit of Sean Connery is about the not knowing about flying, not knowing about who's Max.
So dumb. That joke was so dumb.
All that stuff delighted me. And but it also seemed like it was a subplot from a different film. The sequence in which they're making the suit for him. I
loved the, I assume, lampshade hangery of having the assistant continue to try to put a Scottish looking sash on Connery and the store owner removing it because he's not Scottish. He's Egyptian or whatever.
The weirdest scene. That scene was so, I don't know. Like, that was a crazy scene. Oh, I also have a question. Like, Sean Connery doesn't get all these references. Like, that's the joke. That's his whole joke. And for how many references he doesn't get, I forget what General Kagan. What's the other guy's name? That guy's making references. Katana. He's making references left and right. Sure. He makes like a football joke at one point or something, I swear. Like, he's making fun of it.
Well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense any way you look at it. But I guess how I made peace with that kind of thing was that, yes, he is like knowingly coming from a different time or planet, whereas Sean Connery is like almost reincarnated by magic that was established in the past.
How cool was that train scene, though? It went on for a long time.
Yeah,
People were dying. That baby went flying through the air. Some guy had outer limit eyes for a frame.
Yeah. I enjoyed that scene, again, as an out of context, just this is an enjoyable scene in a movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
You have to kind of cobble to... Oh, that's the thing I had compared it to when I was watching it, is it wasn't as satisfying, maybe... this is a very mixed metaphor, I apologize. It's not maybe as satisfying as a bowl of like Rocky Road ice cream, but it does service very well as a mixed Halloween candy bag. Like, they're not all going to be great, but there's like a Mr. Goodbar or a Crackle in there. Like that shield, that energy shield was cool. That's your Crackle.
Yeah.
Enjoy. And that's the sex scene in the alley.
Well, okay. So my overall feelings on 2 were right when it started, and when they got into these weird concepts right from the get-go, I was a little bit delighted. I was like, okay, it's not making a lot of sense yet, but at least they took a big fat swing with what they're going to do with 2. They're not like they're going to say, the first one had cool fantasy concepts, let's go with cool sci-fi concepts this time and try to make it work. And I felt that way almost all the way through the sex scene, because I enjoyed the hoverboard bird people battle for what it was. And then the sex scene, to me, a little bit justified the sex scene in the first one, because it almost established like, well, when a Highlander does his magic, there's no resisting a Highlander. Or an immortal, I guess. But then the movie continued and
better and better.
Had pacing problems, and I said this to Sachin, and I know you guys aren't going to agree with this because you don't feel so much for the first one. Aside from that sex scene, I don't think that there was an ounce of fat on the first one. I think every scene moved it along. I thought every scene was great. I don't think that I felt it was, for it being a drawling story that took place over long periods of time and had all these complicated concepts to explain. I thought that it moved, and I thought that it was tight. So I definitely lost that in The Quickening.
The thing I liked about The Quickening was that, and I wouldn't say that I liked either movie, and I don't think I'll ever watch them again. I might watch The Quickening again.
Probably when I'm watching it.
But it was at least fun. It was having fun. I enjoyed the ridiculousness of it, and there was a lot of neat shots in it, like the shot at the end when they climb above the shield and you can see like the sky and the mountains and stuff. That was a really cool shot. So it wasn't a completely outrageous movie, absolutely ridiculous, but I enjoyed that it was having fun, and it made it more fun to watch for me.
The worst CGI in it, I felt, was the plane that Sean Connery is on. Every time they showed that plane.
For 1991, I'd say that's not sort of.
I'm just saying that was the only one that stood out to me, whereas the rest of it I thought was pretty damn good.
That plane safety video made me laugh a lot. It was so absurd, but it was, I mean, just like if that was a skit, that would have been hilarious.
Well,
it was very RoboCop.
I felt the same for the psychic cook show.
Yeah.
What a fun, weird sci-fi thing.
Oh, and also Sean Connery's intro. He just drops into a play, and we just, for the longest time, have this weird joke scene about him not understanding that he's in a play.
Before we move too far away from Sean Connery, I got fun facts. I got fun facts for days about this guy. The voiceover that he does at the beginning of the first one has an echo effect because it was recorded in his bathroom of a Spanish villa that he owned, where he had been working with a voice coach in order to perfect the Spanish accent he used in the movie. I don't remember a Spanish accent.
Why did he bother saying that he's Egyptian?
I don't understand. Yeah, I don't. And he's so and so much of the movie is about Scotland, and he's so Scottish that it's bizarre.
But his attire is very like Spanish. It's
also, I like the description of perfecting a Spanish accent too. I love that. That's
what he did.
I don't remember an accent at all, but I do feel like I remember a vague attempt in the first one, whereas in the second one I felt like he didn't attempt at all.
Like, at no point in either of the movies that I ever have the thought, oh, he doesn't sound exactly like Sean Connery talking like Sean Connery.
I guess I just, like, the first one I really was able to take all the characters seriously because I felt like they were taking the characters seriously. Whereas in the second one, and there's a good transition to some of these facts, I do have a little bit more of an answer of what happened with the second one. It was shot almost entirely in Argentina because the country's economy had just crashed, and they were really trying to get income. As the local economy,
Didn't help?
No, as the local economy experienced hyperinflation, the film's investors took direct control of the film, removing the director and his creative influence, and changed all kinds of parts of the story, trying to make the movie that they thought would make the most money.
Did it work?
No. It had a $34 million budget, $3.5 million of which went to Sean Connery for a 9-day shoot.
It was 9 days? I would have sworn that was 1 day per set. I assume they had him for like 3.5 days.
And in the course of those 9 days, Christopher Lambert was unable to shoot any daytime scenes because he and Sean Connery went out to discotheques every night, and he had a hangover every day.
So he was right. Really, the winners of this movie were Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is even this is a fun fact quote that I got from the X-Ray on Amazon, and it's a weird fun fact for them to throw, which is like Christopher Lambert got swindled out of all the money he made on this movie.
In the second one, yes. That is one of my fun, not so fun facts.
I know how. I know I'm a poor person, but don't you just take the check to your bank and say, in my account, please?
He was cheated by false Argentinian businessmen to invest the money he got in some financial managements and lost all of it.
Oh, I don't even understand that.
That sounds like a bad decision. I'd say swindle is kind of a hard word.
Maybe it happened during one of those 9 days he was partying with Connery.
They made an incredible pitch at the discotheque. It was like it was bottle service and a financial management pitch, and he couldn't resist.
My other fun Sean Connery facts are that this is the only character he has ever played more than once, aside from James Bond.
Wow.
I don't know why I'm racking my brain trying to verify that.
He's
That's
lying.
Obviously true if you look it up. That's wild, actually.
My fun fact about the swords that you asked about. Christopher Lambert, because of the fact they had used real swords in the first one, refused to use a fake sword in the second one. In his first scene with it, he cut his finger to the bone. And later, Michael Ironside dislocated his jaw during one of their sword fights, and so after that, Lambert agreed to use a fake sword.
I was going to say, is that
second injury?
After the second injury, after Michael Ironside's injury, I think he was fine with his own injuries.
I see.
Supposedly, when he cut his finger, he insisted on they continue because he didn't want the crew to have to work overtime. But once he injured someone else, it was time to take that note seriously.
I was going to say, is that why his sword looks so dull in the movie?
Ooh, Chris, you listening? Dogging on your sword, bro.
Well, famously, he, Sean Connery, and Michael Ironside all hated the script and did it for the money. And the director also hated the final product and walked out of the premiere 15 minutes in. So this was not a well-liked movie by anyone any of the main players.
15 minutes. I mean, what could they do in 15 minutes that was so different? I mean, he must have shot most of the film. So what?
I think it was the zeist of it all, which we didn't see. But I think that the biggest sticking point, it sounds like, for any of the plot that really pissed everyone off was them being from a different planet.
Oh, and they added that without him, is the idea?
Yeah, that was something done by the producers, the Argentinian producers. And then once he got his renegade cut of the movie, he changed it to it being back in time. And the all he had to do to change that was change the weird voiceover of the justices at the beginning of the movie.
Also, I love that scene because it was like, okay, we have this renegade General Katana, doing whatever, but he abides by the justices. He's not gonna, that's okay. And then they go, so first off, as is our custom, people with this cursed immortality, which they don't really get into where that came from, are sent into the future. And the one who survives can maybe come back. And it's like, if that's what they've constantly been doing, General Katana should have known that too. He's all like, oh, goddamn justices, classic justice system.
I'm also a little confused about the mechanics of this. So, if you survive, if you win the prize or whatever, maybe you go back and all you get is to just live in, the mountain or the desert. That doesn't seem like a sweet deal. Also, if General Zoltan wanted to prolong this, couldn't he just keep making criminals, just sending them through the system, basically, because like
I did think once the bird people had been killed, I thought there were going to be more henchmen. I guess that they weren't birds so much as flying porcupine people. I mean, they had wings.
I really got a porcupine vibe off them.
Yeah.
That's what I thought that they were.
Because they had quills. They had
quills.
Oh.
But I did read bird because I made a joke about the magic flute and how they looked like the people from the Papagia number.
Oh, yeah.
They also had hoverboards and wings.
Lambert stole one of the hoverboards. So I'm just going to say I saw that scene and my first question was, when did Back to the Future 2 come out?
I have that answer. It came out before, while this was filming, that movie came out. And apparently it affected the design of the hoverboards.
Wow, there you go.
But Lambert did that hoverboard sequence that was a practical stunt done by Lambert on wires.
It looked cool.
Wow.
Yeah,
it did look cool. Yeah. They milked the shit out of it though, because for that scene lasted so long, and he crashes at the end of the scene. It's like he doesn't even really fight the guy in hoverboards. It's just like,
it's like the train sequence as well. Like, I guess when there's no director, it's just a team of investors trying to maximize your entertainment. They're like, the train is cool, make it go longer.
I will say the escalating violence of the train sequence was great. I enjoyed all the gore.
Yeah, it got so intense at the end. It was just, at first it was just like, okay, this is like a weird thing that he's doing. And
first of all, why was the train programmed to be able to go 800 miles an hour?
That's what I said.
Why did it crash out into the street, through a wall out into the street? It wasn't even on a train track. And then my third question about it is, why, if it's going 800 miles an hour, why wasn't Michael Ironside affected? Why wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I was surprised by that too. Because he's an immortal, but he could get shot. I mean, the bullet shots affect him. It's not like he's just like this crazy superhero person.
Yeah.
But also, why did he even do that? Just to be chaotic? Like, it was like, there was no, he just landed and goes, yo, fuck it, let's just see what happens.
It's just awesome, I guess.
It did seem like, in many ways, an attempt at an escalation of the Kurgan, where it's like the Kurgan was mad and was scary and was willing to do stuff like drive her around chaotically. But he seemed to have more limits than Katana. Katana was...
Or at least more of a focus.
Yeah, that's true. Any other gems anybody wants to go on about with the second one before I move into the next segment?
No, give it a chance, guys. It's not... I mean, everyone should watch it, I think, with an open heart.
It shouldn't have a 0% if the first one has a 62%.
69.
59%.
I do think it deserves more than a 0 just for the sake of inventive ideas in it, but I certainly loved the first one and didn't love the second one.
Guess I saw a different movie.
So before we get into the questions, I'm going to go over the other sequels real quick. So this was originally supposed to be a standalone movie, and it didn't do well at the box office. The second one happened because it developed a cult following among fantasy and science fiction fans. Part of that was triggered by the novels that were written between the first and second movie. I don't know how many of there were, but there are 10 total Highlander novels. So moving on from that, after the second movie was a huge disaster and everybody hated it, in order to get the rights back, they developed the TV series. So the TV series started before the third movie came out. Christopher Lambert did not return to play Connor. He is in the pilot, and he sort of passes the torch to the hero of the series, Duncan MacLeod, a descendant of the MacLeod clan. However, the third movie, like I said, 3 and 4, written by one of the writers of 2, William Panzer, ignores the second movie, erases it, essentially, and is a direct sequel to the first. It's called Highlander 3. It has multiple titles, the main 2 of which are Highlander 3, The Sorcerer, and Highlander 3, The Final Dimension. Apparently hardcore Highlander fans, all of whom ignore the second one, say that the third one should have been called Highlander 3, The Apology.
Okay.
They're
Whatever. More Highlander 2 for me, I guess, then.
Yeah. After 3, there are 2 more live-action movies, which pick up on the plot of the TV series and star Duncan MacLeod. And then, aside from that, there is a second live-action TV series, an animated movie, an animated series, a Flash animated series, and 4 comic book series. So
that is insane.
Yeah. And so that UCLA undergrad has been making money since that first one. Arguably, I guess.
Hope that advisor got a cut. That advisor really popped this. Right?
I'm sure. Man, maybe he's a producer or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into that. Not today. Okay. I am interested in checking out 3 now, knowing that it's a direct sequel to the first.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a kind of brazen film turns its nose up and says, there is no second movie.
So
I mean, isn't that just what Halloween 2019 did?
it's
It's not
just
called Halloween 2.
No.
Yeah,
So
it's weird for the title to acknowledge that the movie exists and the plot to not acknowledge. Or like, like that's a weird combo.
Sachin gets it. Thank you.
Isn't Halloween 2019 a sequel to the first one, but not the second Halloween?
Yeah, but Halloween,
Yes.
Halloween 2019 is not called
2018,
2.
by the way. But
Oh, 2018.
Yeah.
Time means nothing.
Thank you for joining us on Halloween 2018 Talk, the only podcast where we talk about Halloween 2018.
This is Travis's favorite character.
Mike, get us back on track.
Yeah. Okay, so question 1, should this movie have a sequel? Highlander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I say no. I think it has a definitive ending, and I think it did enough in terms of the concept of the first one that to restart is to change the rules, and so I say no.
I think it's
Sachin?
an interesting world to explore.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that I basically agree with Paul, which is that I can envision spin-offs of this that are consumable and good, but I do think that it concludes in a way where nothing is going to top unless you really revamp something. Like I think that it does such a good job of just painting this picture and ending in a certain way that I think it doesn't need to have a sequel.
I could see, leading into the next question, a plethora of prequels because he's been around. All of them have been around so long.
Mhm.
Or like a paralleliquel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Infinite stories to explore in terms of immortals. So,
Right.
So yes, should sequel or prequel? What's the sweet spot? In this case, I would argue prequel would have been the better call. And from what I know about Highlander 3, I think half of it is a prequel that takes place somewhere within the McLeod timeline,
Oh, okay.
which sounds all right. Yeah.
Well, so I don't know if this because when we get to the movie pitches, my movie pitch is gonna be a prequel. So I don't know if that was inappropriate. Oh, that's okay. Okay, cool. But yeah, absolutely prequel. I mean, like, because half the fun of the movie is that it's a historical thing. Like you get to jump back in time, and so when it's like with the way that they did the actual sequel, with it just being like a sci-fi thing, that just feels so different than what the movie. I think it's kind of what Travis said. It's like if you like Highlander 1, you're not gonna like this random dark sci-fi thing.
And it's interesting that the fix they tried to go for was to make it back in time, because that also still changes the rules. That also makes it so that history is not history, as we were led to believe it was in the first one.
Totally. Like,
I was gonna say the thing about the other planet versus the past is that there's no version of what is available that makes sense.
Supposedly, a lot of where the original script for Highlander 2 came from before it started getting messed with by the producers was Christopher Lambert's insistence that Sean Connery come back. And so they based a lot of their concept on how do we get this character who died
to die.
Yeah.
I guess, do you
what a
have
mess of a movie.
any information on why it was a coin toss between a different planet or the past, neither of which will resurrect a man, and not just prequel?
Well, they apparently never considered a prequel in all of building.
I know that's
two. Apparently, the reason that the coin toss between planet and time travel came up was because of the producers in Argentina, and they wanted it to be a different planet because they thought that would make more money. Like, I don't know, something was lost in translation where they're like, well, more sci-fi, aliens, these are the things that people buy.
Even on the alien planet or in the past, whatever we want to say, they're still named Ramirez and McLeod.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how was it the McLeod clan? Like what? Like it's like they happen to have these names that associate well with, and do they? It's not clear why McLeod and Ramirez don't recognize each other in the first film. Why does he remember shit later? Like maybe after he gets the prize, his memory comes back.
The Band-Aid they put on it is that their punishment for rebelling in the past is that they're going to be sent to the future and they won't remember themselves, but there is a link that they're not told about. They tell each other about. That the Quickening, what the Quickening is in the second one, is that there's a magic that if McLeod calls out Ramirez's name wherever he is, he will come help him.
And one assumes that that is a call of Ramirez with intention and not just like, oh, my old buddy, I never told you about him, Ramirez.
Yeah. I loved that when Ramirez showed up, his first line, or one of his first lines, was like, glad the magic worked.
Yeah.
Where it's just, oh, okay, well, that's why he's back.
Whatever device.
Yeah.
You know, the magic.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to mention one more thing before, I will never bring up Highlander 2 again but it's that the Katana and the dynamic between Katana and John C. McGill or whatever, like he just becomes part of the company. It's just like he has that one threatening boardroom scene and they go, you know what, that's fine, you're my partner, like let's not, cool.
And does he have a reason for doing that? I mean, that's my question about that, is like, does he know that the company, because he says what he wants is McLeod, but he's already found McLeod multiple times. So I was like confused.
No, I didn't look too hard at it. I just went like, yeah, the bad guys are together now. Like in Spider-Man 3, they're standing next to each other now, and you're like,
could be that they added an earlier part of the film later into the film.
What, where Michael Ironside is like, now that I'm here, let me investigate my business ventures first.
I know. And it's like he's physically, the thing is the bullet scene shows that he's capable of being physically affected. Not like he won't die, but you could put him in a cage or something.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's, you know, but, so they just like allow him. And then John C. McGill, knowing that this guy's immortal, like makes that snide comment, like, sounds like you fucked up. Right before he gets his balls destroyed and thrown out a window. Like so confident, so quickly. Like this guy's so clearly like murderous. Like, all right, I'm done with bringing up stuff from that movie.
Boy, I might have one more thing. In both movies, there are scenes in which the bad guy confronts the good guy and then says, like, we'll fight later. And then disappears, and then you wait 4 or 5 more scenes.
Aren't both of those scenes on hollowed ground?
Yes, they're on holy ground. However, in the first one specifically, I remember Connor saying, I'll be out front, or I'll be outside. Like, I'm ready to fight right now. And then they just don't.
I take that as a function of being immortal. You don't really need to get it taken care of today. Like doing something next month might be the same for us as doing something tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. And I kind of, not to spoiler, but I do sort of deal with that in terms of the use of time in my sequel pitch. So, okay, with that being said, let's get into them.
Transition.
Who else has a prequel besides Sachin? Anybody?
I do.
Okay,
mine's
so then...
mine's kind of like a paralleliquel.
Okay, cool. Well, so then it sounds like our order will be Sachin, Travis, Lauren, me.
Okay. Sachin.
Okay, yeah, okay. Oof, I'm nervous depending because I don't know how this is like a very loose pitch, but I'll drop it. So
now, pendejo, shall we see what sort of swordsman you've become?
It's Sir Ramirez, and the idea is that. So, kind of the question I had is why do they know so much about the gathering? Like, why is it that this? What my pitch is that the gathering happened before once. Like it's like a cycle that goes on, and that it's Sean Connery won the last gathering, and I think it would be about him being kind of like a villainous person in the first one. Like he'd be kind of closer to the Kurgan, and through some process, really like he like maybe finds his humanity, loses a son or something like that at some point. I mean, they can't have kids. He has adopted something. And it kind of, the idea is that it kind of explains why he wants to then find someone like Connor McLeod later and really become a father figure to them and try to train them for this thing. So, and I think, and he just says so many fun things in the first movie, like, let's meet Shikiko, that Japanese princess. I want to see him meeting Shikiko, the princess. And so I think it could just be a fun thing to watch him go through his escapades and win. Maybe at the end he talks about why, like, listen, I'm going to prepare this next generation. I'm going to find the weak ones in this generation and prepare them so that they don't fall like victim to what I did to so many people, something like that.
I love that. And I also love what that does for the character of Ramirez, because to me, in the movie, he seems so great, yet Connor's able to best him consistently, fairly quickly after some training, and he's the first one to die. So that I like giving him more, bolstering his past I like specifically.
And I wanted to bring up one thing that kind of led to this pitch too, is that but they don't get into like why would Ramirez have been born so much farther ago? That gives Connor McLeod such an unfair advantage. Yeah. He has centuries of not having to worry about dying, where other people were. So that kind of backfills a little bit that Ramirez actually just was around for other quickenings, and so that's a little bit of
gatherings. Yeah.
Gathering.
Do you have a title?
No. I Highlander II: The Gathering instead of The Quickening. No, I don't actually have a title.
Does Ramirez have any kind of name like the Highlander or the Kurgan at any point, or he's just Ramirez?
He says he's from the Queen's Army or something. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Villa Lobos. It would just be Highlander II: Villa Lobos.
Okay, cool.
I like that. I can't believe that I didn't think about Ramirez as telling us about his storied and interesting history, and at no point did I think, oh, I could just do that. After the whole first movie, I was racking my brain like, what stories are there to tell? I forgot that Sean Connery was like, these really interesting ones about this very important sword. And I'm like, no, not that.
I did real quick want to bring up, there's so much of Ramirez's scenes are spent on him telling Connor, I'd save you the heartbreak of falling in love. Like, don't woman. But Connor falls in love over and over and over again, and he's so happy. Like, it's fine. That is fine. It's also sort of contradicted by Ramirez himself, because it's like he does all that, and then he's talking to Connor. He's telling her a story about like, so then it was the girl I was there to save had died, so then I hit on the other girl. And it's just like, oh. Right. And then he hits on that lady on the airplane in the second one.
He sure does.
Oh, gosh.
Woo, dirty comment.
It is a lot.
I'd never really heard something like that in a mainstream movie like this, so that was clearly just Connery is like, I've got something I use for this.
I think that's an improv, and I think it's probably something he's said to women. Anyway, Travis, your Highlander pitch.
Okay, let's see.
You cannot win, Ramirez. I am the strongest.
So unfortunately, it looks like I spent zero time on a title. I have written Highlander 2. That's what it'll just be called. Not exciting. This whole movie, you're basically going to want to understand his co-character for it, because that's going to be the thrust of it. So we're going to be focusing on McLeod's longtime buddy Drake, who he has a sort of tenuous relationship with, because all of these Highlander immortal types are vaguely enemies. They know there can only be one, so at some point there's going to be a clashing of swords.
Sorry, this is a character we haven't seen.
We have not seen. This is a new character. And so their relationship is sort of a commingling of antagonists and buddies, depending on where throughout time they meet. And the opening of the film is going to be a sort of a montage-esque thing where we just sort of get the flavor of their relationship. You can sort of think about the opening scene of, I think it was Wolverine Origins, that showed Wolverine and Sabretooth going through the different wars together. Yeah. So we're going to see them throughout the centuries. We'll see them sword fighting on a pirate ship in the rain. We'll see them running in the desert together, from some danger to an oasis.
Those happy runs. They're the best.
We'll see Drake leaving Mac chained to a burning bar while he laughs and leaves. We'll see Mac and Drake toasting at a wedding somewhere, abroad. I don't know. But we'll always see them as different ups and downs, so we don't know what the relationship is, but it's always something kind of fun. And the person who is obviously going to be playing Drake is Tony Todd, because I wanted someone who could live up to that Clancy Brown, Michael Ironside. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted someone who could kind of bring it, because I want to set this sequel maybe in 1990, around there. And the overall plot is this is going to be in America in 1900. Tony Todd is an antiques dealer in, the New England area or something. He's sitting down at a very posh looking sort of restaurant in his top hat or whatever, looking quite fine. And then in comes McLeod, and they sort of lock eyes across the restaurant, and McLeod comes over, and Tony Todd grabs his cane, which one can be assured there is a sword within. And McLeod has kind of got his hand underneath his long coat, and Tony Todd kind of says, McLeod, and McLeod says, Drake, and Drake says, is it friends or enemies this century? And McLeod pulls his hand out from under his jacket, revealing a black revolver. He sets it down between them, and he says, partners.
Ooh.
Highlander 2.
Wow, that's just the opening. Woo!
Yeah, that's where we're finally going to start our damn plot.
Holy cow.
There you go. Holy shit. All right.
And then from here, it's gonna get broad pretty fast. But the overall story is that the reason McLeod's in town is there is a new Black Rider. There's a new Clancy Brown gunning for immortals. And McLeod wants to look out for his buddy Drake, because even when they're enemies, they have each other. And this guy is coming out from the American West, out where it's like, quote unquote, untamed West, and he's coming into town. This man will be played by Danny Trejo.
Oh.
So they're basically teaming up, just like in the first one. It's just going to be a Highlander fight. There's going to be some fun cowboy elements with Danny Trejo, but obviously, you can't shoot someone's head off. Well, you could, but not with a 6-shooter. So he's going to have a sword too. I'm toying with the idea of him having a metal collar, maybe. But I don't know what to do with that beyond it looks kind of cool.
Here.
So then him and Tony Todd and McLeod are going to team up to fight this cowboy-esque outlaw. Of course, they will triumph. Of course, there will be, cool set pieces, whatever. I spent all my energy working out the opening. And the picture is going to end with them burning down some building. I think the antique shop. They've lured the Black Rider, Danny Trejo, into a trap. Sprung it on him. They can't cut his head off. Maybe he's got that collar, so they burned him to death. That counts as head removal. So they kill him, and then McLeod's kind of like, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do next, Drakey boy, Drakey my friend?" And Drake says something to the effect of, well, maybe the Black Rider is not the only one who died in that fire. And he picks up the black cowboy hat from, let's say, not the fire, somewhere nearby, and he puts it on himself. And he says, maybe it's time for Drake to head out west and make his fortune there. And then, McLeod says something cheesy like, "Well, happy trails, partner." Mm-hmm. And then they part their ways. But
in theory, the Kurgan kills him later.
Yeah, that is the downside. I was talking to Lauren about that with my pitch yesterday, is you have to, any new immortal character you introduce in a prequel, you have to assume at some point will be killed by someone by the time you get to Highlander. Yeah. So I thought about doing some spoilers for many, many Fast and the Furious movies. Thought about doing a sort of Han-esque ending with him, where you sort of bittersweetly acknowledge that, he's going out and maybe never to be seen again. Maybe these two friends will not meet again, but you don't want to live in that. You want to try to give it a triumphant sort of silver lining moment.
Okay, cool. Yeah. There is apparently a deleted scene from Highlander that's about another immortal that the Kurgan goes to destroy, and that immortal is just sort of tells him, like, "I'm tired of carrying this weight of time. Just do it." And offers himself. So perhaps there are some happier versions of an immortal's ending.
Yeah, maybe there's. I like your version of happy.
Well, you just get tired. I mean, life cycle is what it is.
I think it does sound really fun. I love that relationship and show, a new. I think it's really cool to show this new immortal like that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Great pitch, Travis. Really, really well done. Okay, Lauren, your parallelical.
Okay. I'm nervous. Whew. Okay.
What am I supposed to say?
Amelia is an immortal, but she doesn't understand the extent of it. She's only about 80, but she knows something's up, but she doesn't know 80? What the deal is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, she's 80, but she's young still.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
She stars in a circus act in the early 1900s. Her act is she is impaled with multiple swords and comes back to life before people's eyes. She is brushing through her usual group of hecklers one night after a show when she meets a man named Charlie. She's noticed him in the audience multiple times this week, and she feels an instant connection with him. They flirt when they're suddenly attacked by a man with a huge sword, Ron Perlman.
Nice. Ooh. Good pull for this universe.
Charlie and Amelia escape. We jump a little bit forward in time. Charlie reveals that he himself is immortal just like she is. He's 400 years old, however. They move to Los Angeles together. Amelia makes a career as a stunt woman on the silver screen. Charlie teaches her the ways of the sword and about the life as an immortal and the whole deal with everything. We jump a little bit further in time. They have their life in Los Angeles together. Amelia is showing Charlie around the empty set of her newest movie when Ron Perlman returns. They all fight, skill pretty evenly matched. They land a few blows. Perlman's a little bit injured. And he angrily warns, "You won't outnumber me forever. There can only be one." And he runs off, defeated for now. And during this fight, they're fighting through like various like movie sets, like conveying various timelines. So they're basically like fighting throughout time and history. She connects some dots, wonders why Charlie was at her circus act in the first place, realized he was probably scoping her out to kill her. They fight about it. He's like, "No, I yes, but I fell in love with you."
Nice.
Blah, blah, blah. Amelia is upset. She leaves him heartbroken, trust broken. To clear her head, she drives up into the hills. Ron Perlman ambushes her, having followed her. The fight leads down the hill to the partially constructed Hollywood sign. Oh, Amelia is incapacitated by Perlman when suddenly Perlman is shot in the head by Charlie. Charlie helps Amelia limp further onto the sign, explaining that the only way to beat Perlman is to combine Amelia and Charlie's powers together. Amelia stops them at the W and refuses the idea. But Charlie insists, heartfelt goodbyes, and he falls backwards off the sign, hitting thin sheet metal leaning below, decapitating him.
Oh, good aim.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Stretching his neck the whole time.
Yeah.
It was a gamble, but it worked.
Yeah.
Amelia absorbs Charlie's powers just in time to meet the sword sweep of a suddenly conscious Ron Perlman. They fight all the way to the D before Amelia gets the upper hand, not just by her skill at the sword, but by her experience as a stunt woman and all her tricks she's learned there. She lands the killing blow, absorbing Perlman's powers. Amelia is heartbroken, bloodied, and weary, but triumphant. We pull back to a wide shot revealing the whole hillside sign, Hollywoodland. Cut to black. Title, Hollywoodlander.
And also, what a good like homage to the first one, like the fight on the sign. You know, like that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to comment that I was like, oh boy, if Lauren doesn't have a title for this one, I'm going to suggest Highlander all the way to the D. But two fun facts about the Silver Cup Studios fight. Apparently, the original ending was supposed to take place on the Statue of Liberty, but they changed it.
That makes sense.
And secondly, in the Silver Cup Studios fight, apparently you can see wires and there's all kinds of like technical issues with the final cut. However, the reason they didn't refilm it is because they caused so much damage on that set piece that they literally couldn't. Like their permission was just way past spent.
Denied.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I was hoping that no one would guess what the title might be.
Oh yeah, no, you heard it.
No, I would never have guessed that. That's amazing.
And you also
Because
you saved the land for the end.
I think we can all agree my pitch was cool, but then when you hear Lauren's pitch, you're just like, oh, who cares about Travis's 1900s cowboy shit? I want to see Lauren's Hollywoodlander stunt show.
But again, like with yours, we know that she dies at the hands of the Kurgan or someone later.
Right.
But that's fine. That's still fine.
Yeah.
Again, prequel is the way to go in this universe. That being said, here's my sequel.
Want to hear another theory?
And I did play with some rules. Also, I did take a rule from apparently the novel, a well-respected rule in the Highlander universe, which is that the immortals stop their aging process, their like physical aging process, as soon as they kill another immortal. So upon experiencing their first quickening, that's when they stop aging.
It's a good rule, though. I think because they need to explain why they're different ages.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
true.
Right.
I'd buy that, yeah.
It begins with MacLeod addressing the UN as a guest of the United Kingdom. So this is a direct sequel to the first one. So he has the prize. He blows everybody's mind with his presentation in which he proves that he can read everybody's mind. When he reveals something particularly nefarious about someone, I don't want to say a specific country, an attempt is made on his life. Like the person's just like, pulls out a gun, fires it at him. He kind of like goes over the broad strokes of what his situation is. He states that now that they know the truth, he'll be back in 25 years to once and for all help them settle things, and with everyone's cooperation, finally, truly make the world a better place. The United States ambassador does not like this one bit. He doesn't like this guy or the ut of his jib. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't mind shitting on the U.S. if it was made in the 80s, it would probably have been Russia, but I'm going US. US is the bad guy here.
Take him down.
That night, sorry, I'm giggly because that night Connor makes love to Brenda. When he climaxes, all of the spirits of the other immortals are released, sort of the reverse of what we see at the end of reverse.
Not into her.
So they're out of him into the world.
Out from where, Paul?
Okay, yeah.
Paul, out from where? When he climaxes, where do the spirits come out of?
It's not a central point. It is from. It
They
looks
actually
like
come out of Brenda. Brenda's mouth and eyes just start appearing out of.
that could work. There's no rules to these magic. So when he climaxes, all the spirits of the immortals are released. And when that's over, he says, I think you might be pregnant. So, funny Highlander moment.
Yeah.
Not only does this lose Connor the prize, he is just a man now. But his daughter, Juanita, would seem, is an immortal, named after Juan Ramirez.
Yeah.
Anyway, something he finds out by way of a would-be tragic accident. I don't have it specifically, but my first thought was like he drops her in a river and then finds her down the river perfectly fine and then says like, let's not tell your mother about this. A lot of hilarious Cloud moments. Upon his discovering that Juanita does not possess the prize, though she is immortal, Connor realizes that challengers will eventually come for her. And so he begins training her in all forms of combat. Basically, him procreating starts the cycle over again. And now new immortals are born all around the world.
Oh.
The United States ambassador also discovers, coincidentally, that his son is an immortal and brings him to challenge Connor, who he still believes is an immortal, when both both the boy and Juanita are still children. Connor fights them off, but spares the boy, whom has named himself, or his father has named him, the Victor. It's not until she is the age of 16 that Juanita kills her first immortal challenger herself. And Connor explains that she will grow no older now that she has done so. So she's 16 forever.
Drag.
Okay, then... And just because I want to see this, he tells her the story of his first beheading of an immortal, and we get to see it. So we get a backstory of the first.
Ooh, that's fun.
I got to have it. 9 years later, Connor, now a weather old man, returns to the UN and brings Juanita along. He explains how his immortality has passed to her and the circumstances surrounding the prize. The U.S. ambassador, whose son has grown to be a gargantuan and fearsome warrior, insists that no further time can be wasted and the gathering must begin so that a winner can be decided. And so the UN hosts a tournament of the immortals. So the gathering is essentially like a all-at-once event where all immortals are called and all the battles happen back to back to back. Connor considers this an abomination, stating how these young immortals have barely lived and can't be expected to shoulder this great responsibility, but it falls upon deaf ears. Battles are fought, immortals die. Juanita falls for one of the other immortals, and that one is struck down by the Victor, the U.S. ambassador's son, who himself has an eye on her, like is starting to fall for her. Connor hates himself for causing all of this and makes one last attempt to convince the remaining warriors that the prize should not be necessary to make the world a better place. They can do it together, if they work together, basically. Some of the remaining immortals flee the gathering, leaving Juanita and the Victor as the last left to fight publicly. Juanita throws down her sword, putting herself at the mercy of the Victor, who, despite his crazed father's insistence, cannot bring himself to kill her. When the ambassador himself tries to kill her, he's killed by his own son. Juanita and the Victor, now friends, call back the other immortals and form a tryst in cooperation with the UN. Years later, Connor dies as an old man, so his daughter and his wife bury him. The world, at this point, does seem to be a better place, and the Victor, who's attending the funeral, comments that it's a shame that Connor couldn't have been an immortal, and Juanita responds, he is. I call this movie Highlander: The Final Gathering.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have any cast in mind, Paul?
The first person who came into mind for the U.S. ambassador was Christopher McDonald.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do they just no longer feel compelled towards a gathering, or they just are going to worry about that later?
Well, I think that to some extent they do, and that is part of what they exploit to get them all there. Like there's almost like putting out the call. I assume that there would be magic involved. Because they're all so young. I feel like a lot of them would be coming from wherever they're at in the world, not really knowing what the deal is. Also, like so many of them would not be aware of what's going on, and the only reason that the U.S. ambassador and his son are aware is because of Connor's original conference at the beginning.
But I mean because after they make their truce, after they decide to not have this.
Oh, I see. Are they compelled to see? I sort of wanted to almost leave that as a possibility for a third movie, in which the question is, can this last?
Totally.
Yeah.
He could have sort of like the secret ace in the hole where he's like, oh, I am immortal now. They don't know that my immortality juice turned back on.
Oh, because I gave father to child.
Right.
Okay.
And now he can jump back into the fray or something. I don't know.
Wait, why did he wait 25 years? Like, what's the point of waiting 25 years?
Give them time to get their houses in order. Like, now that you know I'm here as your gatekeeper, or you're the coach, or the guy that can best you all, you better clean up your houses, basically.
I buy it.
Let's get into the voting. And the way that we do voting on this show is that we vote for as many concepts as we like and would like to see.
Including our own, if we want.
Yes, exactly, including our own. So we're just going to go...
I just want to vote for everyone. So that feels like all right.
Yeah, this comes up a lot. Because I kind of want to vote for everyone's. So, shit.
I've already internally decided to just vote for one person so that I don't...
Oh.
Okay.
I've already decided who I'm not voting for.
Okay, so we will start with where we started. So, how many for Highlander 2 Villalobos?
Me.
Oh, nice. I like that you went Scottish with it. So we've got 3 for Villalobos. That's a pretty strong start.
You didn't vote for yourself, Sachin?
No,
I just said I was only going to vote for one person, so like that makes me like I'm not going to vote. So I won't vote for myself.
Okay, so then we move on to Travis's prequel, which was Highlander 2, just Highlander 2.
Yeah.
So that's got 2 votes. Okay, we are now moving to Hollywoodlander.
Oh, yeah, me.
Okay, that's a 3 for the... Okay, last but not least, Highlander: The Final Gathering. Oh, 3. Okay, so we have a 3-way tie. And there can...
Wait, did you both vote? Did all of you vote for your own? Because then I'll vote for mine and win.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
This is the Quickening!
Does everyone vote for their own consistently on the show?
Yeah.
Not a great system, so
Okay.
I have to imagine if we have any listeners, they just hate that the whole concept of the show is a competition that always devolves into this Mario Party bullshittery.
I think that they hate when the competition aspect doesn't work, probably, because it is a showdown. Because otherwise, then what's the showdown? I do know that you hate the competition, Travis, because you're our sensitive one in the
I don't think so. I think you guys are all just jerks.
I don't know. Everyone says that you're so sensitive, so
yeah.
Everyone's talking about it.
I knew it.
No, I mean, I put it the nicest way. It's like it's a boy band, and Travis is the sensitive one.
I thought that was the funny one.
Oh, really?
Or the like.
Okay, well, let's move into Unsung Heroes.
Hit it, Ball Jr. Unsung Heroes.
These movies, in my IMO, are full of unsung heroes. I mean, just full of these. And I think that this is a product of the 80s in general. These side characters and extras that are just fan-freaking-tastic and really layer the movie well. So I'm going to have a hard time narrowing this down. So I'm going to let everyone go first.
First off, the security guard who so actively doesn't care that the Shield Corporation is getting broken into. He's like, it's a fish. Like, there's this weird scene, and it was so long. It's like, and like it was just so weird that he's like adamantly defending against these two security guards. And also, I love that. Obviously, it's pre-recorded, but it shows the video camera, the security camera, after he turns away, actually starts focusing in on the criminals. Like, the screen itself is like auto focuses on the. So I thought that was great. But then I think this maybe takes it, and it really, it's not really even, it's like an extra. It's not even like a secondary character. But there's when they're starting the Shield up for the first time, and they're all in the blast dome, and there's this line that I love, which is like, okay, every power center in the world, we're turning on, like he's like talking to every major city's power centers, and he's saying stuff, and we see that they go, okay, everyone get ready, and there's a shot of two people running away from and there's a vehicle that's driving away also. And it's like, who are those two people that are like, I just like would love to imagine that they're like, oh fuck, it's today. And like are running away from the explosion that's about to happen. So I think I give it to you guys.
Mine was the same security guard. I really enjoyed his board read of "Fish live in the lake." I also do agree. It almost seems like he's working for the enemy with how little he's interested in barely doing his job. Almost just agreeing to let the man he's talking to do his job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the guy who just happens to be walking by when the hoverboarders are like going around. He just says to the hoverboarder coming at him super fast, "You got a light?" And then the guy just like fucking sets him on fire.
Homeless guy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Forgot about him. Yeah, that was great.
That was
man.
devastating.
Oh wait, this reminds me of one I forgot to mention. The taxi driver. It didn't even make sense because Katana's like destroying his cab, and he's like, "Oh, you'd love my sister." Like for the longest time, I was like, "Am I mishearing the guy? Like, is he still like so excited about like?" Because then Katana starts threatening him, and then he gets scared. But like for the first half of him destroying the cab, he's like, "Oh, this is great! Like, I love you."
I got the impression from what he was saying about his sister, and just sort of that vague shot early on when McCloud is being driven down the street, and there's that woman, I guess, being raped, or like the naked woman around. It's sort of like they really want you to get the sense that this city is just like past the point of no return, fucked up. So I think that's probably part of it. Is it's like, oh yeah, my cab gets destroyed all the time, and my sister's nuts. So, so I guess I just thought of that as more world building. In the first one, the guy who works at the Italian ice stand, and the cops are getting Italian ice, and the guy is reading the newspaper, and he's saying like, "What does incompetent mean?" And then yeah, he's so good. He really brings so much personality to that moment. And also, like, I love that line could be read so many different ways, but the implication on him is like, you know exactly what it means. You're just poking these guys. Yeah. And then in the second one, I have two. One is just a perfect example of ADR. It's the bartender who loves McCloud. But
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy, the bartender, yes. The one line that got him on this list for me is McCloud says, "You're a good boy, Jimmy." And then Jimmy goes, "Hey, bottoms up." Just as a response to anyone of, hey, well, bottoms up. I love that. And then my number one candidate for an unsung hero in the second one is there's the truck driver that during the battle sequence with the porcupine bird people, his truck gets destroyed. And he's driving, and like, but the first thing that happens is like his window gets blown out, and just he doesn't have any lines, but he goes like him having 3 short bursts of screams really spoke to me because I was like, you never see that, and that's pretty accurate to what a person would do, where it's like losing control. Like
I really like how instantly his windshield shattered, and instantly his hand was out there moving the glass. Not a second's panic. And
it was, he reacted like I would react. Where it's like, oh God. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. I guess we'll cut it there. You know, I do always feel bad just for the sake of loving agreeing with you guys when we don't we aren't on the same page. But I do also think that adds to the charm, hopefully, of what we do.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I would much rather discuss our differences than just agree at each other. Let's close out our show.
Yeah.
So I can pee and upload our audio.
Consider it closed.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
On the next follow-up Showdown.
The movie we were talking about today, 1995's While You Were Sleeping. We've got some rock star guests, Kelly Nineltowski and Mark Whitten.
I must say, I hate the title.
It just sounds inherently creepy.
That would totally be a name for a horror movie.
Totally.